Welcome into another edition of the JMU Sports News Podcast. I'm Bennett Conlon, joined by Jack Fitzpatrick. And we don't have the craziest one today. We're talking a little basketball. We're talking a little defensive coordinator. There's enough late January news that we should have a fun day.
Yeah, originally we were like, do we want to have this episode? And then I said, Bennett, they did just win 2 in a row on the road, men's basketball, that is. Women's basketball is firing on all cylinders. We should probably just have a late week, quick roundup to at the point when we were planning. They hadn't won last night. It would have been a real bummer if they had lost to Coastal Carolina yesterday, but they pulled out that win. Justin Gray, though, looking pretty feisty with the Chanticleers. We'll get into that in a little bit.
They've lost like 7 or 8 in a row.
Yeah,
but okay.
Look, I'm trying to be nice.
I do like Justin Gray, though. He's going to get him around.
I remember when I was writing the potential replacements for Byington, he was one of the first names I had, and then I checked and I was like, oh wait, that's why I knew his name.
They scooped him up. Hired.
Yeah. He was a guy that I thought could have played well at JMU.
Absolutely.
And he just has he's essentially taking what JMU's job was that Byington took.
Yeah, he was building from nothing, where Spradlin came into a pretty good situation.
With less investment from the school, yeah. All right, we also want to let you guys know that the biggest betting weekend of the year is finally here, which means more updated odds and props for Super Sunday. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. That's Super Sunday, not this Sunday, but the next Sunday. We don't call Pro Bowl Sunday Super Sunday. We have hundreds of prop bets, and if you bet the Pro Bowl, I have a number for you to call. We have hundreds of prop bets, MVP odds, and exclusive in-game live betting. BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline offers you everything and more. There's more than everything.
Wow.
To enhance your game day experience. Visit the website today and make the game day action count a little bit more. BetOnline, the game starts here. And, this podcast, we're going to break everything down and more. That's what people have been saying.
More than everything. That's crazy.
Also want to let you guys know about our friends over at Cinnamon Bear Bakery and Deli. JMU has a game this Saturday on the men's basketball side inside the Atlantic Union Bank Center, right across the street from the AUBC. It's Cinnamon Bear Bakery and Deli. Go over, check them out. Tell them we sent you over there and enjoy some delicious baked goods, some delicious coffee, and the best bakery and deli. I know what I'm saying. I've got a bone to pick about that other bakery and deli and bagel shop in Harrisonburg. Cinnamon Bear, the number one bakery and deli in Harrisonburg, right across the street from the Atlantic Union Bank Center. And while we're getting all this stuff out of the way, be sure to like, rate, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, wherever you find good podcasts. And if you're watching on YouTube, thank you for watching on YouTube. Subscribe right there as well. Leave a comment below. And if you don't mind, we would love a 5-star rating. We would love if you wrote a little rating out in Apple Podcasts as well. Those always go a long way. Bennett and I get a lot of happiness from reading those. And you can also bring us happiness by buying us a coffee. Buymeacoffee.com/JMU Sports News. Thank you to everyone who has already bought us a coffee. That has gone a long way in supporting this podcast, in keeping our website up and running, and hopefully a men's basketball trip here coming up in February or March, early March, I guess I should say, here soon, that will be funded from Buy Me a Coffee. So thank you so much to everyone who's bought us a coffee. You can do it at buymeacoffee.com/JMU Sports News. All right. Where do you want to go?
Should we start defensive coordinator and just knock that out?
Yeah, we can knock that one out of the park.
That was good.
Thank you. Did it sound like hitting a ball?
Yeah. Off a wood bat.
There we go. Defensive coordinator replacements. Per a source, Zach Sparber, the linebacker coach, is being interviewed and is a strong candidate to land the job. It sounds like, I'm not 100% sure on this, but it sounds like it's kind of a 2-dog race between, or I guess a 2-horse race. Dog racing isn't all that PC. It's a 2-horse race between Colin Hitchler, the former Alabama defensive coordinator, and Zach Sparber. A great external hire and a promising internal hire. How are you viewing it right now, Bennett?
Yeah, interesting. Sparber wasn't an internal guy considered, and then you look at his track record and who he's coached under. He got out of college in like 2014 or 2015. For some reason, I thought he was more of a recent graduate than he is. So he's not. So
He's
he's
got a baby face.
yeah, he does. He's a little bit older. He's worked. He was at Virginia Tech. I think as a grad assistant when they still had Bud Foster. He coached under Mike Elko at Duke, and then obviously Lyle Hemphill at Duke and JMU. So he's learned from some pretty good coaches. I think he's certainly on a coordinator trajectory. And then Colin Hitchler is more experienced, so he would probably, I don't know, on paper, I think Hitchler gives you a little more credibility and experience, obviously. So I think he would maybe be the number one option just because going from like Cincinnati, Wisconsin, Alabama, you'd think he could hold his own in the Sun Belt. And certainly I think Sparber could too. But if you add Sparber, maybe you're looking to add another experienced hire at a position coach after that, just to give him some other minds to sort of bounce things off of, because he is still a little bit, he's never been a coordinator.
If they hire Sparber as the defensive coordinator, that would mean all of their coaches do not have any sort of Division II or I coordinator experience at all. The most experienced NCAA coordinator experience would be Eddie Whitley, who was a pass game coordinator, or I guess pass defense game coordinator for Bridgewater a few years ago. That would be your only coordinator experience in the NCAA ranks. Sam Daniels has experience as a coordinator at the apprentice school, which I think it might be a JUCO. Not entirely sure what technical like thing they're under.
Yeah.
But if Sparber's hired, you have no D2 or D1 coordinator experience. So I think you would have to go out and find a guy that could potentially bring some of that experience, help him with the game planning.
Mm-hmm.
Chesney does have the secondary playing background, so that could help as well. But your head coach probably doesn't want to be in the minutia day-to-day helping of a new defensive coordinator game plan for, Coastal this week.
Yeah, I would guess, unless there's something internal where they really like Sparber, interviews well, and they like the idea of sort of keeping some continuity within the defensive scheme. I would guess that Hitchler is the number one option, and then Sparber is probably number two. But we'll see, because I think if you're Hitchler and you've been at Power Four schools, like it's not a shoe-in that you would take the JMU job.
Yeah.
Also,
Because he was also fired from Alabama, kind of as a scapegoat. But when you get
Seems like
fired,
that,
there's
yeah.
this very important thing of severance. So, and the way that kind of works out, we were talking about it with Mike Houston. I'm not sure if it's exactly the same with the co-defensive coordinator from Alabama, but there's a strong chance that he could be paid this year his salary for sitting at home doing nothing, and he'd be paid the same as if he was on the sidelines inside of Bridgeforth coaching.
Yeah, so there's a lot for him to consider. He might also have some other opportunities, so we'll see. But it seems like those are the two, right, that have stood out, at least from what we've heard, is Sparber and Hitchler.
Yeah, those seem like the two guys. There might be a dark horse out there, but I would expect today's Friday. We're recording a hire to be. I know I said this. I think when Lyle initially took it, I was like, expect it to happen quick. Because I just assumed that they had things moving in the background before Lyle even made the jump to Texas A&M. But then I kind of, sometimes I'm a little reactionary. We all are. I get it. Did I say after the first game of the men's basketball season that this team was better than last year's team? Maybe I did. No one has the podcast recording of that. That might be up there with my worst take of all time. That might rival your Connor Mitch take.
We'll see, because we'll see how they finish the year.
But where was I going with that? Oh, at potentially kind of digging myself an even deeper hole. I wouldn't expect us to be talking about potential replacements at the next podcast. I would expect us to be talking about they hired X and it means Y.
It won't be a Virginia Tech search that took,
Oh my
I think,
goodness,
almost 2 months,
7
right?
weeks.
7
weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
What? Why? It's not that hard.
Because they had somebody they were considering who was coaching, they said, like in the national championship, and or late in the playoffs, and they got turned down. So they waited for somebody essentially who didn't take it, and then they had to scramble, which is it's a bad look. But hey, Hokies are going to do what they're doing.
They're going to go into the year with a lot of expectations and quickly destroy the hearts of all of their fans within week 3. All right. That's about it for the defensive coordinator. Quick wrap up. Should be hearing something soon, but that's what we're hearing. Sparber and Hitchler. If you had to pick one, who are you picking?
Hitchler. I kind of like the idea of an outside voice for the defense, just because they haven't done that offensively. They had the Holy Cross, Dean Kennedy connection. I think an outside voice with experience at like a Power Four level is helpful. Experience as a coordinator at the Power Four level is helpful in recruiting. I think it's helpful of like making sure dudes in the spring don't want to transfer. I think it's just really good to add that kind of experience if you can. And I think if they get Sparber, I think that'll be fine. But I think getting Hitchler and then potentially retaining Sparber too sounds like it would be kind of, plan number one if you can do it.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. The Sparber, the plus side is that you keep the continuity. You keep what Lyle
Yes.
Hemphill did. It's going to be the same defensive scheme, or I guess a similar defensive scheme, very similar. And then Hitchler may be kind of something new, and you recruited based off of Lyle Hemphill being there, so that could also play into it a little bit. But I agree, Hitchler, an outside. I'm always a proponent for an outside voice. I think if you bring in as many different ideologies who can all work together in a good way, that's the best for your team. Do you want to quickly touch on a transfer portal update since the last time we recorded a podcast? You may not have seen this because it went relatively unannounced, kind of was quiet. The dude didn't announce it on Twitter. I think never mind. Cam McNair.
Yeah.
That's a big one. Offensive lineman, first team All Patriot League a year ago. Another Holy Cross transfer coming down. And he's a big boy.
Yeah.
Very, I mean, played this last season, I believe, at right tackle and was an all conference type of player. So now you've got Pat McMurtry coming back, Cam McNair. Then you have the Valdosta State transfer who played left tackle there, but looks to be good. Like this line, we were saying it when people were asking, oh, what else position? You can never have too many offensive linemen. Seems like they can't have too many offensive linemen. They may have some dudes.
Seem pretty deep on the offensive line, yeah. So they look good at that position. The other update, I can't remember the name now, but there's that USF receiver who had committed to JMU and then had been like, my recruitment's still open. So I guess he's not coming. But they added a Stonehill College guy under the radar. It was listed on the roster. Started his career at Illinois as a walk-on. So they have a lot of receivers too. The offense seems like on paper, I almost feel more confident in the offense right now than the defense, which is surprising because I'm very confident in the defense.
And also surprising considering last year's QB1 may not be ready to go for the start of the season.
Right.
So then you're going in with Matthew Sluka or Camden Coleman or a little bit of both. Should be really interesting. I had another point to make and I lost it. Oh, I want you to explain real quick. This isn't really transfer portal-y. It's more like recruiting-ish. But you tweeted your mastermind counting the numbers conspiracy theory. Can you share with that on the podcast?
Yeah. So if the House settlement goes through,
which
it seems like it's probably going to.
What is the House settlement?
The House settlement essentially is just like, I think every school gets a like $20.5 million that they can spend on athletes, but then it has certain rules. So it basically allows like more streamlined payments for players. It also, the settlement part gives like former athletes who probably should have had earning, they can opt into this, and I think they can get some sort of money as well. But the main thing in terms of like what it means for the future is schools are going to pay people, which a bunch of schools have already like put out announcements that like, yeah, we plan to do the full 20.5 million and pay and whatever. And JMU sort of put out a statement that was like, we're monitoring and we're coming up with a plan type of thing. So we'll see what exactly happens there. But anyway, athletes are going to make some money in like a more streamlined way, it seems. You're going to have roster caps on certain sports. And you're also going to have cuts then. So football, JMU already lists 105 players on their online roster.
Which is the max cap.
But it doesn't include like a few freshmen who haven't enrolled yet, a few high school, like incoming freshmen. It doesn't include some of those Holy Cross transfers that are going to come in the summer. So like they have to cut dudes if if the settlement goes through, which it seems like it's trending toward that way. So we'll keep an eye on that. But yeah, the roster that's listed now, some of those guys just wouldn't be on the team in in August, essentially.
And they're adding a ton of preferred walk-ons, like as we speak. They've added like 5 to 10 preferred walk-ons in the last week and a half. So you got to imagine those might just be bodies in spring camp vying for like the 104th and 105th spot on the roster.
Yeah, there's some of that. And then I think that Chesney's preparing just in case it doesn't go through. So business as usual because it's not officially changed yet. And then when it does, yeah, you're going to have to cut players because you can't have over 105 people. You don't need to give all 105 like a scholarship or the same level of payment. That's kind of up to the discretion of the school. But you can't have more than 105 bodies on the roster, which most programs did have more by like 20 to 30 with walk-ons. So something to monitor certainly is that the roster is going to look a little bit different. Some of the guys that are on the roster now probably won't be in August just because of the new rules.
Very fun stuff. Something to monitor, a situation to monitor.
A situation to monitor, indeed.
They're also going out to kind of stick on recruiting here for an extra second. They're going out and recruiting a ton of class of 2026 right now.
Big time.
Like
after it.
Every time I put on the Dukes Recruits Twitter and I'm scrolling, I'm like, there's another offer. There's another offer. Sam Daniels is getting everywhere. Holy shit. This guy is everywhere. Oh my God. Another one. Dude is recruiting like a madman. Do you think they said, Sam, you have to get out 20 offers in the next week? Because that everywhere.
They're looking at those 2026 guys, and it's it's the process of a coach. I think the funny part is like if JMU goes off next year, he's not there in 2026. So we'll see how it all plays out. I can't get too invested in 2026 offers at this point just because of how quickly things change.
I mean, there's a good chance that if they roll out the same season they had this year, he's gone.
Yep.
I mean, it was a relatively quiet coaching carousel this year on the East Coast, it felt like, which I think benefited JMU in not losing Chesney.
Which is good, man, because it would suck to go like third, fourth. What were they in the Sun Belt East? They went 4-4 in the Sun Belt. You lose as a coach after going 4-4 in the Sun Belt, you're pissed.
Exactly. You know who's not? I mean, maybe they will. Preston Spradlin's not going anywhere in the meantime. But I gotta.
Bless you, sir.
That was a good sneeze. JMU's won 3 in a row. They've won 4 of their last 5. Things seem to be going in the right direction for men's basketball. They picked up a 73-64 win last night against the Fighting Chanticleers. Some saying the feisty Chanticleers. Not sure who's saying that, but I mean, I'm hearing it from sources. But slowly starting to creep up Ken Palm a little bit. I mean, are you excited? Has this 3-game winning streak, winning 4 of their last 5, has it done anything for you? Or are you still kind of in a wait and see period because they've beaten like bad teams?
Yeah, I don't know if they've gotten any better or if the schedule's just gotten worse. But the fact that they won consecutive road games is valuable. They still haven't really lost to a bad team. Like they've lost to some teams that aren't like, wow. But they don't have like a horrible loss in terms of the opponent, which is good. So they're finding ways to win. I'll take the wins. I think they can stack some at the end of the year. I'm optimistic about what they can do the rest of the season. I don't think they're going to win the Sun Belt, but hey, they could get a top 4 seed and then anything can happen. I still think they're very talented. So if they're in the mix with a top 4 seed in Pensacola, basketball, man, you have a couple hot shooting nights.
You've got to be a top 4 seed going into the Sun Belt tournament with the way it's set up, because if you're not, then you're having to win a lot of games in a very short amount of time. As it stands now, JMU is in a tie for 3rd. It is an absolute log jam at 6-4. App State, South Alabama, JMU, Marshall, and ODU all tied at 6-4. The one bright spot right now is that JMU holds the tiebreaker over Arkansas State, who's at the top of the Sun Belt with the win. And they've got a date with Troy coming up where they could potentially get a tiebreaker with them as well. Now, here's the downside. App State, they've lost both games to the Mountaineers, and South Alabama they lost to earlier this year in not heartbreaking fashion, in demoralizing fashion that broke our hearts because it was so demoralizing. So of the top 4 teams in the Sun Belt, you could potentially have a tiebreaker over 2 of them, but then not have the tiebreaker over the other 2. And tiebreakers are going to play into account because it's a log jam and a mess between these teams, and there is no good team in the Sun Belt.
It's such a mess. It's also funny, like South Alabama was on a roll, and I was like, wow, this could be a team to beat. They lost consecutive games to Louisiana Monroe, which was had winless in conference. Like, what are you doing?
When JMU lost to South Alabama, they were flirting with the top 100 of KenPom. I think they were like 96 in KenPom. And apologies if you don't like KenPom numbers. That's what Bennett and I use as our Bible to kind of tell you how good a team is. South Alabama is now 146 in KenPom, and it's now looking like one of JMU's kind of worst losses. It's on the back half of JMU's losses.
Yeah, it's weird, man. Arkansas State, that's a really nice win too. Arkansas State looks like they're probably the best team in the Sun Belt, which is not a surprise from what we expected early in the season. But they can't really shoot, which seems like it could potentially be an issue come conference tournament time. So it feels like it's really up in the air. It's not like last year where JMU and App State were both wagons. Arkansas State is very good, but they're not like, if they get in, they're winning a game. Like, I don't think that's a guarantee by any means.
And this is the chance for Arkansas State. They just signed Brian Hodgson to an extension, but it's a Mike Houston-esque extension because I think they know they're or Byington extension. They know he's gone after this year. Like, he's going to be one of, if not like the hottest coaching candidate in America, because his Alabama ties, he was an assistant on Nate Oates' staff, and what he's done at Arkansas State to like turn the Red Wolves around and make them the best team in the Sun Belt. Got him to the championship game a year ago. Recruits extremely well. Good for Arkansas State for getting that extension done so they get a little bit more money when he leaves.
Yeah, good on them. So they had to do it. You got to take advantage of your window.
Exactly. But here we go. JMU has won 3 in a row. They've got ODU on Saturday. You were saying it before you cut out, which also your internet only cuts out when you talk, which
and
really
on StreamYard.
And on StreamYard, but it really impacts editing because if I'm talking and you freeze, I can then just like become really long-winded and cover it until you come back, which helps me in the editing process. A little inside podcasting here. When you cut out, I'm like, damn, I'm gonna have to sit here and wait for 5 minutes. Okay. You were saying you don't know if they're playing any better or if the teams that they're playing are worse, which is fair. But can I be a little optimistic here?
Yeah.
This
I love optimism.
This 3-game winning streak has started since they decided to throw a curveball and only start Mark Freeman or Xavier Brown. Mm-hmm. They've stopped this whole, we're going to put Xavier Brown and Mark Freeman out on the court at the same time as the 1 and the 2 guards. They said, screw that. We're benching one of them. They're going to still play good minutes. They're going to play starter-esque minutes, kind of. And we're only going to play Xavier or Mark, whoever fits our scout on the defensive side better. And over that 3-game stretch, they've really found an offensive rhythm. But more importantly, it feels like they're getting away from what they were doing for the first bit of this season, which was just chuck threes at an insane rate. They ranked 68th in the country now in percentage of their shots, which are threes. They were like top 40 like a month ago. They still are around the 50 mark in point distribution, where 37% of their points come from the 3-point line. Now, over the last few games, they've started to kind of rear that back a little bit. Against Coastal Carolina, they took 32 twos and they took 15 threes. I like that. What was that?
I think they took more than that.
No, they took 15.
That's Coastal.
Sorry. They took 33 twos. Yeah, they did. They took 30. Now this takes off my whole point. I derailed myself, but they still took less threes than twos, which I'm all for, because there was a point where they were taking more threes than twos and the offense looked disjointed. But against ODU, they took 10 less threes than they did twos. And in the game where they kind of chucked a lot of threes, they were shooting 48% from beyond the arc. So when it's going, they lean into it a little bit more. When it's not going, it feels like they're starting to lean into kind of mid-range play and interior shots a little bit more. And I think that's because Mark Freeman is finding a rhythm offensively.
Yeah, that's helping. They're also getting the line a little bit more, which is good because they're really good at the free throw line. Like 51st nationally, shooting like 76%. I think some of that is if you've got a lead late, you're getting some late ones when you're getting fouled. But 22 free throws against Coastal, they made 18 of them. They turned the ball over just twice, which is the other thing that they've been so bad at, right? Is those sloppy, stupid passes. So yeah, I think they're taking fewer threes. They're getting to the free throw line. They're a little more like strong with the ball. They're trying to take some twos, like you were saying. It seems like they've streamlined things a little bit offensively, and it's clearly leading to some results, even where if they don't shoot it great from three, which they didn't against Coastal, they can win games, which was the issue all year. They would like alternate wins and losses because they would alternate hot shooting nights from three, basically.
To kind of back up my point a little bit more, before I accidentally read the Coastal stat line instead of the JMU stat line, it is my point is backed up with stats. They're about middle of the pack in 3-pointers attempted per game and middle of the pack in 3-pointer point distribution. So where they were at the top of the Sun Belt a month ago, they've now kind of gone back into the middle of the Sun Belt, which means they've reared back their chucking a little bit. And they're letting the guys who can chuck, aka Bryce Lindsey, who's a walking bucket. I talked with Preston Spradlin on Talkin' Dukes, which you can catch every Wednesday on ESPN Richmond 1061. But I asked him, I was like, as a fan, watching Bryce Lindsey, every time he shoots it, it feels like it's going in. And he kind of chuckled and he said, yeah, as a coach, I feel the same way. And I was like, hell yeah, you have that much confidence in Bryce Lindsey. That's awesome.
Yeah, him getting a little more time is cool because he's absolutely cooking. He's just a very good scorer, like an elite offensive player.
He shoots so many threes and he barely, like, that is his game. Do you know, you probably have KenPom pulled up in front of you. Do you know his effective field goal percentage?
No, but I assume it's pretty high because he's good at the free throw line. He's good everywhere.
61%.
Yeah, he makes everything. He's like the best shooter you've ever seen. He's good at the free throw line, good at 3 points, good at two. He's been really good from two when he takes them, when he gets to the rim really effectively. And then I don't think he turns it over a ton either.
He's 174th in the nation in 3-point percentage, which you might be like, that sounds low. Mind you, there's like thousands of players that are being ranked in this system. So he's like in the top 25% of 3-point shooters. His 61% effective field goal percentage is 83rd best in the nation.
Yeah, he's good, man.
He is
like
fun.
Bryce.
We do like Bryce. Next up, they got ODU on Saturday. They just beat ODU 74-60 at their place in Norfolk, Virginia. KenPom's predicting a 10-point win for that game tomorrow. We won't whoa, that was a bad voice crack. We won't really preview it too much because by the time you're listening to this, the game has either already tipped off, is about to tip off, or just concluded. So not really worth diving into that game too much, but we talked about it last week. Huge opportunity for JMU here to kind of start stacking wins. Looking at the remainder of their schedule, their toughest game outside of the season finale against Texas State on the road is at home on Wednesday against Troy.
That's going to be a tough one, yeah. But it's not a terrible schedule. I will say I'll agree with you a little bit. Last week I was a little harsh on ODU. They picked up a couple wins since we last recorded, including a road win at App. They're kind of surprisingly good on the road. They got some nice road wins. Beat South Alabama on the road, beat App on the road. So that's no gimme. I think the Coastal game at home for JMU that they just played was way more of a gimme than ODU. So it's going to be a bit of a fight, but a fun day if you want to put your butt on a couch because you've got, I think the women play ODU at 2 on the road and then the men play at home at 4.
Look, man, ODU is streaky. They don't have the best stats, but when they get hot, you're like, oh wow, they just like rattled off 20 points in 7 minutes because they just chuck from 3.
Big Big stretch coming up for the Dukes. But this, yeah, if they can get that one, it's huge. Keeps the momentum rolling going into that Troy game, which hopefully they can get some people there for. Have a nice student section on that Wednesday game and maybe grind one out because they've got a really favorable stretch from mid-February on if they cannot get through a couple of these next ones.
Should be fun. And you know who else is really fun?
Peyton McDaniel and company.
That whole women's basketball team, 10-0 in Sun Belt play. They've won their last 10, sitting at 18-4. Bro, they're very, very good.
Yeah, they're hovering right around 50 in the net. They're like a top 50 team, man. They're sweet. They're really good defensively. Ashanti Barnes has turned into just an absolute force in the post at the forward position. Peyton McDaniel's the best player in the conference. Good ball handling this year. Kim Caldwell's gone. Like, so many positives this year for women's basketball. And Kim Caldwell, every time I see a clip of her in my feed, which is constant because she's a quote machine in Tennessee, I just smile a little bit. I'm like, she's gone. Kim is gone. She gives birth. She comes back. She's coaching like 20 minutes later.
Well, it is a little worrisome that she did just give birth, because that means in roughly 25 to 30 years, JMU could be really struggling with Kim Caldwell 2.0 at Marshall.
That's true. Yeah, if she follows the same path, if her child follows the same path. But she's come back, what, within like a week of giving birth?
Within a week of giving birth.
She's crazy. So she's
I love Kim Caldwell. She's doing great things. She's a fantastic coach. I see why Rose Scott didn't love her.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Allegedly.
She's a hardo.
Like, imagine not being like 110% into basketball because, you know, you're a college student and you have other life things going on, and your coach is Kim Caldwell, who's like, basketball is run wind sprints for the next hour because we're going to run a full court press for a full game.
It also makes more sense at Tennessee, where like if you're a player, the history of Tennessee women's basketball, it's like, okay, I get that she's a hardo. If you're a Marshall, it's like, what are you doing? What's your deal?
Doing all this to lose in the first round of the NCAA tournament
by like a million.
Currently, according to Charlie Cream's ESPN bracketology, because it's bracketology season,
yeah, it is.
JMU is a 13 seed.
Okay.
Guess who they would play in round 1?
Sometimes they localize it. It's like Virginia Tech or something.
Maryland,
yeah. The Terps. They are
you could go to that game. We could go to that game.
Yeah, we could. They've been dealing with some
injuries. Could I stay at your
though.
apartment?
Sure. They've been dealing with some injuries.
Sure.
Terps. So we'll see what goes on there. Cheyenne Sellers has come back from her injury, but Bree McDaniel's out for the season. One of their key guards off the bench with a torn ACL, which is unfortunate. So they've struggled a little bit since then, but they've got some good players. Reef Poffenbarger's sister, Sailor, really good player.
Wasn't he the quarterback we wanted from Albany? And that went to Miami?
Yeah. His sisters are all just like star basketball players.
So JMU's got ODU on Saturday in Norfolk, South Alabama on the road on Wednesday. Then they do the MAC Sunbelt Challenge at home on February 8th. If JMU, is it out of the realm of possibility to say this? If they win out, like, it's a real possibility they win this season out, right?
It seemed, well, yeah, right, because they've got only 8 conference games left.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah.
So they're more than halfway through the Sunbelt schedule. It's possible. I mean, they might stumble once, but the way they're playing, like I thought they were going to stumble against Coastal. They're down like 4 going into the fourth quarter, and then you snap your fingers and the game's over, and they beat them pretty handily. So they can kind of turn it on and flip a switch because they're so good at so many different positions. It's one of the best rosters Coach O has ever constructed.
If they win out, do they get an 11 seed, do you think?
They could be in that mix, I think.
2 seed lines?
I'd say 12 or 11 because it depends on who you're beating and all that stuff. But they do have some nice wins on the resume. Their losses, they don't have a bad loss in the 4. Some of them are like elite level losses. The Florida win helps. They clipped Villanova, which is nice. So they've got some good wins. Yeah, if they can keep, I think the net for both sides, I know it definitely does for the men, so I assume it does for the women. I assume there's some metric in there that includes like efficiency. So I imagine margin of victory is helpful too. Like if you're playing a bad Sunbelt team and you can beat them by 20 or 30, That's going to help you out a little bit. But yeah, if you have like a top 50 net and you're, God, what would they end up being then? They'd be like 27-4 in the regular season with the 31 games.
Yeah.
If you're 27-4 with a top 50 net, like, yeah, 11 or 12 seems reasonable, especially if then you go out and win all your conference tournament games and you're whatever that would be, 32, not 32, it would be like 30-4. Very good. Or 32-4 because the system's so favorable to the 1 seed.
They'd only have to win 2 games.
29-4 then, right? Yeah, I gave him
you'd only
2
win
in
the
addition to the 3 I gave him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then you'd only be playing like solid teams. You wouldn't need to like blow out some scrub team to keep your net. You would just play other good teams in the Sun Belt.
Yeah. Should be fun. And this team is good.
Should be really fun. I've still got, everybody circle that February 8th game, little Super Bowl appetizer on that Saturday against Ball State, which is like has the same net as JMU basically. It's in Harrisonburg. There's 2 top 50 mid-major teams. The MAC Sun Belt Challenge is a fun little addition. That's a great chance. Talk about winning out. It's probably harder to win out. Because of that one, right? You should the Sun Belt winning out. But if you get that one, that's another huge win.
It's a massive win. I unfortunately will be unable to watch that game.
You will be unable. You will be in. Are you in like Michigan?
Yeah, I'm in Eastern. I'm gonna be at Eastern Michigan in Ypsilanti.
Or is it Ypsilanti?
I will figure it out while I'm in.
I should know this.
Aren't you from the area?
I thought it was Ip, but now I'm second guessing like you wouldn't even believe.
I thought it was Ypsilanti. Let us know.
Who knows? Who could say? But yes, you will be in Michigan.
Should be fun. I'll be calling the ODU game on radio.
So that's part of the challenge.
Yeah, they put me up there. They're like, good luck.
No, part of the
MAC Sun Belt Challenge.
I hadn't pieced together that it was why they would be playing Eastern Michigan.
When
in
February. Told you that,
I was just like, yeah, sure. And then I was like, oh, that's right. That's why they would do that.
Oh, weird non-conference schedule there in the middle of the season against a MAC opponent when they already have the MAC Sun Belt Challenge.
I wonder how coaches feel about that one. ODU probably is down since they're like steadily improving and all that stuff. Fun chance against a non-conference team. But if you're like Louisiana Monroe and you're bad, and they pair you against like one of the worst teams in the MAC, like it's so different from the top and how it helps you for the tournament. And the other ones where they're just like checking the box of finishing the challenge.
That's such a good point. Like for JMU last year, it was like, okay, here's like a good win that you could get on the resume at home. This is going to be good. Early on in the season against Kent State, it was an exhilarating game.
Yeah.
Kent State didn't hold up their end of the bargain because they kind of got bad as the season went on.
It sucks if your like net is bad.
Like it also sucks like at the beginning of the season if you get paired with like one of the preseason favorite, like JMU with Kent State last year. That was supposed to be like a circle good win on the resume. Instead, it was like they probably should have blown them out by like 10 or 15 with the way their net finished and how JMU's net finished.
Late,
and like that ended up being a bad win.
It's crazy. It really is crazy. It's definitely got to be a challenge for some of the Sunbelt schools because JMU gets like a legit winter. But if you're not getting too much of a winter, I guess they had a weird snowstorm in the South this year. But if you're not getting that, and then they're sending you to like Miami, Ohio in February or
Ypsilanti, Michigan.
Who's doing this?
Well,
Ypsilanti sounds right to me.
You do rotate. So next year they would get the winter in November, which isn't much better than February.
But at least you're going in with like you don't know how your season is going to go yet. I feel like it'd be more debilitating to go into the cold.
ULM.
Yeah, like you got nothing going on. You're not good. Who knows what's going to happen with your coaching staff? You're all probably going to transfer, but enjoy this 1-day trip to the Midwest.
Who does ULM have?
They're also rolling now that they've gotten South Alabama twice, so I shouldn't disparage them too much because they're in a little bit of a groove. It actually looks like they're not even part of it.
Oh, do they just
leave one out too many or something, or a couple too many? Like, does Coastal have one? Coastal goes to Bowling Green, so that would be a good example. Coastal's lost, 7 games in a row, and they're playing Bowling Green the day before Super Bowl Sunday. And Bowling Green is 7-13. So
let me read the Key matchups. Additionally, South Alabama. Okay, on the women's side, the Sun Belt. Okay, on the 12.
Like Louisiana's going to Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois is 5-15, with 3 of those 5 wins are against non-D1s. They beat Northern Illinois this year on December 30th, beat East West 117-50.
Yeah, it's 12 Sun Belt teams taking on 12 MAC teams. So
Okay.
the bottom 2 in the net of the Sun Belt, I would assume, do not play in this challenge.
How is Northern Illinois 350 in Ken Palm, and they're included?
Illinois 350 in Ken Palm?
Northern Illinois. Illinois is on the map. They should do that, though. I think every year, one power conference team should be forced to play in the MAC Sun Belt Challenge and represent the MAC. It'd be like Illinois, but they have to go into the bottom. So, like, Illinois gets to host Louisiana as part of the challenge.
No. Louisiana gets to host Illinois.
Still nobody shows up. Did you see the women's game? Not to get too off track, but we're pretty much
done. This
is
the end of the podcast. We can get as off track as possible.
Not to Northern Illinois. They played Georgia State or Southern. Yeah. Nobody went to the game.
The last game they played.
It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. It seemed like they had COVID protocols.
I think I only saw in the clip you posted to Twitter. I think I only saw one person in the stands.
Good on the women's team for finding ways to keep playing hard and doing stuff, because those atmospheres are trash.
All right, I'm going to pull up the box score. What do you think attendance was?
Oh, I'm sure they lied, but attendance looked like it was 38.
Attendance?
But I'm sure they said it was they probably said it was like 800 or something.
573. Which is
when you're lying and it's like 500. Those are just like vendors. Those are people giving out concessions.
All right, let's see. Game by game.
They count players in that?
That's only 24.
They count ESPN Plus viewers in that?
Maybe. Don't they put attendance in this? They do in football. They don't in basketball.
Probably because no one was there. They really don't list it?
Well, no, they listed it on the box score, but how you can go game by game and football in the JMUsports.com, the statistics, you can go game by game and sort by attendance. They don't have it in basketball, because I wanted to see if that was their lowest attended game of the season.
Who else? The Marshall one didn't have a great one, but I'm sure they listed more than that. Yeah, they had over 1,000 allegedly.
Allegedly.
Well, then it's like for the home game against Coastal, that was like a big game, and they had that nice comeback, 2 solid teams, 2,400. I mean, they're outdrawing Georgia Southern by 2,000. You look, it's so weird to watch. You'll turn on ESPN Plus, and it's just you hear every squeak of the shoe and the ball bouncing basically when they're on the road. And then you turn it home, and there's they hit a big basket. And you've got the cheerleaders getting up. You got student section. And it's oh, this is good. Cool. People support them. And then you go on the road. It's I don't know if anybody in Statesboro knew there was a women's basketball game today.
Well, it's like the Convo days with the Rowe era. You turn that on and you could hear Rowe's raspy voice calling out the plays to the team on the broadcast.
Now his Oregon Ducks are pretty good, though. I don't know if he's on his Oregon Ducks, but
Yeah, that's
coaches with Oregon.
Painting with a broad brush there.
He's the man, though. I love him. I hope they hire him once Bradlin leaves. Give him a chance to run it back, figure it out.
I hope they hire Ron Sanchez. Just kidding.
UVA fans were hyped. They weren't actually hyped, but they beat Miami, dreadful Miami, the other day, and they're like, "Yeah, good win for the boys." And it's you guys stink.
Did you see the Ron Sanchez quote the other day about shooting early in the shot clock?
No, what did he say?
He said, the question from the reporter was essentially this guy had an open shot early on in the shot clock. Is it coaching to have him not take it and make the pass? And Ron was we'd rather drain it to 10 seconds left on the shot clock than take a good shot early on in the shot clock.
It's just the stupidest for so many reasons, right? They're 10-11. So it's it's not even working. Your fans, nobody wants to see it. And you're passing up good looks. It does not make any sense. and they just keep running it back. They're like, yeah, what if we just tried what Tony did? It's like, maybe that doesn't work anymore. You should hire like a fun coach.
My favorite is that they're talking about who they should hire, and they're like, well, within the Tony Bennett tree, we could go with
Yeah.
Can I say a hot take potentially?
Get out of the tree.
Tony Bennett is like a fine coach. He's not like this god. I don't get why UVA
Yeah, I'm
fans
with
put him
you.
up on a pedestal. Like, he's fine. He worked with what he had, but he like underperformed quite often. Set history as the first ever coach to lose to a 16 seed as the 1 seed. Like, consistently didn't get the most out of his roster in March Madness, and yet we're honoring him after he left the program high and dry in the
Why are they
season that
honoring
he
him
should be
mid-season?
coaching.
They're
Like,
honoring mid-season where he's not dead.
he should be coaching. We shouldn't be honoring him in the season that he should be coaching, in the season that he left 2 weeks before the year started.
I get that he wanted to give like Ron Sanchez a chance, but like he had to have known. He did know what the roster was. Like Ron Sanchez had no chance.
Also, like, the worst part of it is that like their best player left right when Tony retired.
They're
Like,
just
right? Like, shouldn't Tony have been like, hey, good, right? It was a transfer that they got, like this big transfer guard that they got that was supposed to be like the focal point of their offense.
they lost somebody. Yeah, I can't remember. They
But
got
like,
Isaac McNeely, and that's basically it.
why didn't Tony talk to the kid that was going to transfer and be like, look, this is the situation, and try to keep him there? I don't know.
I don't know why they do anything that they do, but they suck. So I just wanted to put that out there. You know who else sucks? Virginia Tech.
They're
Like the best
horrible.
basketball in Virginia is pretty clearly at the mid-major level right now.
Who is the best team in Virginia right now?
VCU's
VMI.
nice.
I think VMI. They just won
How's
a game.
VMI this year?
They're horrible. It's VCU. VCU's by far the best team.
VCU's nice.
Mason's
nice. Liberty's nice. Is Richmond good? I haven't looked at Richmond.
No. They've lost 6 in a row.
Okay, so Richmond's not nice, but yeah, it's the mid-major level is where it's at, and JMU's now won 3 in a row, so they're obviously trending. But they do have a better KenPom ranking, JMU at 13-9 than Virginia Tech.
So suck on that, Hokies.
Yeah, they stink, dog.
All right. Anything else you got to add?
No.
All right. For Bennett Conlon.
Covered everything.
For Bennett Conlon, I'm Jack Fitzpatrick. Thank you for tuning into the JMU Sports News Podcast presented by Bet Online. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe wherever you find good podcasts. And if you listen to Apple Podcasts, rate us 5 stars if you so please. And if you can, write us a little review at the bottom and kind of say what you like, what you don't like. You can email us, jmusportsnews@gmail.com, with any of your thoughts. And we'd appreciate it if you bought us a coffee, which would go towards teas for Bennett, beers for both of us, or lodging for whatever game we're able to get out to finish up this men's basketball and women's basketball season. So have a wonderful rest of your day. We'll talk to you guys potentially next week. See ya.